Second Chronicles chapter 22. Then the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his place, for the troops that invaded the camp with the Arabians had slain all the older ones. Thus Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, became king over Judah. He was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 1 year. His mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri. He too walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother counseled him to do evil. He did evil in the sight of Adonai, like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after his father's death, to his destruction. He also followed their counsel when he went with Jehoram the son of Ahab, king of Israel, to wage war against Azael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead. The Arameans wounded Joram, so he returned to Jezreel to recover from the wounds inflicted on him at Ramah when he fought Hazael, king of Aram. Then Azariah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to see Jehoram, the son of Ahab, in Jezreel, because he had been wounded. Now through his coming to Joram, God brought about Ahaziah's downfall. Upon his arrival, Ahaziah went out with Jehoram against Jehu, the son of Nimshi, whom Adonai had anointed to cut off the house of Ahab. So it came to pass that when Jehu was executing judgment upon the house of Ahab, he came upon the officers of Judah and Ahaziah's relatives who had been attending Azariah, and slew them. He then searched for Azariah, who was caught hiding in Samaria. Then they brought him to Jehu, put him to death, and buried him, for he said, "He is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought Adonai with all his heart." Then there was no one in the house of Azariah to hold power over the kingdom. Now when Athaliah, Azariah's mother, saw that her son had died, she arose and destroyed all the royal offspring of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeath, the king's daughter, took Joash the son of Azariah and stole him away from among the king's sons who were being slain, and put him and his nurse in the bedroom, because Jehoshabeath, daughter of King Jehoram and wife of Jehoiada the Kohen, was the sister of Azariah. She could hide him from Athaliah, so she could not kill him. He remained hidden with them in the house of God for 6 years, while Athaliah reigned over the land. Chapter 23. Now in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and brought the officers of hundreds, Azariah the son of Jehoram, Ishmael the son of Jehohanan, Azariah the son of Obed, Maaseiah the son of Adaiah, and Elishaphat the son of Zikri, into a covenant with him. They went throughout Judah and gathered the Levites from all the cities of Judah and the leading patriarchs of Israel. They came to Jerusalem, and the entire congregation made a covenant with the king in the house of God. Then he said to them, "Behold, the king's son. He must reign as Adonai promised concerning David's sons. This is what you should do. A third of you, Kohanim and Levites, coming on duty on Shabbat, will keep watch at the gates. A third of you shall be in the royal palace, and a third at the foundation gate. And all the people shall be in the courtyard, and all the people should be in the courtyard of the house of Adonai. But let no one enter into the house of Adonai except the Kohanim and the ministering Levites. They may come in, for they are kadosh. And let all the people observe the service of Adonai. The Levites will surround the king on all sides, every man with his weapon in his hand, and whoever enters the house, let him be killed. Stay close to the king in his comings and goings." So the Levites and all Judah did according to all that Jehoiada the Kohen commanded. Each took his men, those that were on duty on Shabbat, and those who went off duty on Shabbat. For Jehoiada the Kohen had not dismissed any of the divisions, and Jehoiada the Kohen delivered to the officers of hundreds and King David's spears, shields, and bucklers that were in the house of God. Then he stationed all the people, each man with his weapon in his hand, around the king, from the south side of the house and the north side of the house, by the altar and by the house. Then they brought out the king's son and placed upon him the crown and the insignia. They proclaimed him king, and Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and declaring, "Long live the king." When Athaliah heard the shouting of the people, running and praising the king, she came to the people to the house of Adonai. She looked, and behold, the king was standing by his pillar at the entrance, and the officers and the trumpeters were beside the king. All the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing the trumpets, and the singers with their musical instruments were leading the praise. So Athaliah tore her clothes and said, "Treason, treason." Jehoiada the Kohen brought out the officers of hundreds who were set over the army and said to them, "Bring her out from between the ranks and put to the sword anyone who follows her." For the Kohanim said, "Do not put her to death in the house of Adonai." So they seized her as she arrived at the entrance of the horse gate of the royal palace and killed her there. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between himself and all the people and the king to be the people of Adonai. All the people went to the house of Baal and tore it down, smashed its altars and images into pieces, and slew Matan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Then Jehoiada placed the oversight of the house of Adonai under the authority of the Levitical Kohanim, whom David had assigned over the house of Adonai to offer the burnt offerings of Adonai, as it is written in the Torah of Moses, accompanied by rejoicing and singing as ordered by David. He also stationed gatekeepers at the gates of the house of Adonai, so that no one who was ritually impure for any reason could enter. He took the officers of hundreds and the nobles, the rulers of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought the king down from the house of Adonai. They came through the upper gate in the royal house and seated the king upon the royal throne. And all the people of the land rejoiced. The king was quiet. The city was quiet, for Athaliah had been slain with the sword. Chapter 24. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of Adonai all the days of Jehoiada the Kohen. Jehoiada took 2 wives by whom he fathered sons and daughters. It came to pass after this that Joash had a heart to renovate the house of Adonai. He assembled the Kohanim and the Levites and told them, "Go out to the cities of Judah and collect money from all Israel year by year to repair the house of your God. Do it quickly." However, the Levites did not act quickly. So the king summoned Jehoiada, the chief, and asked him, "Why have you not required the Levites to bring it from Judah and from Jerusalem the tax of Moses, the servant of Adonai, on the congregation of Israel for the tent of testimony?" For the sons of wicked Athaliah had broken into the house of God, and had even used all the sacred things of the house of Adonai for the Baalim. So the king commanded that a box be made and placed under the gate of Adonai, house of Adonai. A proclamation was made throughout Judah and Jerusalem to bring in to Adonai the tax of Moses, God's servant, upon Israel in the wilderness. All the officers and all the people rejoiced and brought in and cast into the chest until it was full. Whenever the chest was brought by the Levites to the king's officers, and when they saw that it was full of money, the royal scribe and the officers of the Kohen Gadol would come and empty the box and take it back to its place. Thus they daily gathered much money. The king and Jehoiada gave it to workmen who carried out the work for the house of Adonai. They hired masons and carpenters to renovate the house of Adonai, as well as craftsmen in iron and bronze to repair the house of Adonai. So the workmen labored, and the renovation work progressed in their hands. They restored the house of God to its original design and strengthened it. When they had finished, they brought the remainder of the money before the king and Jehoiada, and they made it into vessels for the house of Adonai, vessels of avodah, and for burnt offering, pans and utensils of gold and silver. Then they offered burnt offerings in the house of Adonai continually all the days of Jehoiada. When Jehoiada reached a ripe old age, he died. He was 130 years old when he died. So he was buried in the city of David among the king, because he had done good things in Israel and toward God and his house. Now after the death of Jehoiada, the chief of Judah came and bowed down to the king. Then the king listened to them. They forsook the house of Adonai, the God of their fathers, and served Asherah poles and the idols. Wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem for their guilt. Adonai sent prophets to them to bring them back to him, and although they admonished them, they would not listen. Then the Ruach Elohim came upon Zechariah the son of Jehoiada the Kohen. He stood above the people and said to them, Thus says God, why do you transgress the mitzvot of Adonai? You will not succeed. Because you have forsaken Adonai, he was also forsaken you. But they conspired against him, and by order of the king, they stoned him to death in the courtyard of the house of God. Thus King Joash disregarded the loyalty which his father Jehoiada had shown to him, and slew Jehoiada's son. As he was dying, he said, May Adonai see and avenge. It came to pass that at the turn of the year, the Aramean army came up against him. They invaded Judah and Jerusalem and massacred all the chieftains of the people and sent all their plunder to the king of Damascus. Although the Aramean army came with only a small number of men, Adonai gave over a much larger army into their hands, because they had forsaken Adonai, God of their fathers. So they executed judgment upon Joash. When they withdrew from him, for they left him very sick, his own servants plotted against him because of the blood of the sons of Jehoiada the Kohen, and assassinated him on his bed. He died and was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. These men conspired against him: Zabad, son of Shimeath the Ammonitess, and Jehozabad, son of Shimrith the Moabitess. Now concerning his sons and the many prophecies against him, and the rebuilding of the house of God, behold, they are written in the commentary of the books of the kings, and Amashiach his son became king in his place.